folks, my name is Tom Vasel, and welcome to a new series that I'm starting where I'm talking about the best games from different companies. Now, there are a lot of board game publishers that are out there, and so this series is going to easily take me at least half of 2017, maybe farther than that. As we take a look at each publisher, I'm going to be talking a little bit about that publisher and my favorite games from the different publishers. But I wanted to do this quick introductory video about this to kind of talk a little bit about where I'm going with this. Now, when it comes to these publishers, I'm not giving a detailed history of each one. I'll talk a little bit about the history and my knowledge of that company, but it's sometimes difficult to figure out what exactly happened unless I go find someone from that company and do an in-depth interview with them, and we'll save that stuff for other time, but just talking about it. But there's sometimes confusion about, what company publishes what, because companies co-publish games. Some companies are going to publish others, especially they have different rights in different countries. So I'm trying to usually talk about original games from a publisher, although sometimes I'll talk about the games they brought over, like with Mayfair and Rio Grande. I'll talk about games that they brought to America because I think that sort of thing is very important. So there's not a real good history on many of these companies on the internet, but I want to talk a little bit about each company, what I think of their games in general, and then I'm going to give a top 10 of my favorite games of that company. I'll also talk a little bit about maybe the most popular games from that company. But I think that talking about publishers is important. Don't get me wrong, designers is important. And when I'm finished with the whole publisher shebang, we will go into designers and we will talk about different designers and their, how they, what their best games are, etc. And I think it's very important that on a game, it's important to have the name of the designer on the box. I think it's important. But I also think a publisher is important as the designer. Sure, a designer comes up with the game, but the publisher is the one who takes that game. They front the money to put that game to market. They are often highly involved in the developmental process of a game. There are many games that are decent designs, but once they go through a great development phase, then the game itself becomes amazing. And then there's just, the physical production and the artwork and all that, it does add to the game. I know there are a few people out there, possibly some of you watching, who think none of that matters. They could play with just some piece of paper, and I just highly disagree on that. I think the presentation of a game is very important. As you can see in the games that I have on my shelves, you'll see many of them have just stunning presentation. It does not make a good game, but it certainly enhances a good game into a great game. Publishing is constantly changing as I go through these. There are times I'll talk about publishers who no longer exist, but I still think it's important to talk about the games that publisher did and to see maybe what happened to them or why their games are no longer viable. So I'm going to try to do about 3 publishers per week here, and I have at least 70 to 80 publishers on my list, maybe more than that, and maybe I'll add more as time goes by. I wanted there to be at least 10 games from the publishers that I talk about. There's some new publishers, but I can't really go into them too depth because I want to make a top 10 list, and it's a little difficult when they don't have 10 different games. So we'll see as time goes by. And I'm also not doing the publishers in any kind of order. I'm just picked around and said, okay, I'll do this publisher, I'll do this publisher. I don't want to give any single publisher maybe too much preference. I just want to pick a publisher and say, why do I like the games that they make? So keep an eye out for those videos coming out this week. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel. Look forward to the best of each publisher.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.